We are very happy to be here today for the celebration of the 30th anniversary of the Transdisciplinary Charter on November 6, 2024. We will speak about transdisciplinary management and leadership. We'll present new readings on the 1996 Delors report from UNESCO and the 1994 TD Charter, especially the Articles 2 and 13. We are here speaking from Quebec, Canada. Our guest speaker is Engineer Leonardo da Silva Guimarães Martins da Costa. His MBA, creator of the Holopraxis Transdisciplinary Management, a transdisciplinary theory and practices. He has several publications at the ResearchGate, especially in Canada. He has publications in the Leadership Journal Review, one of the most important Canadian transdisciplinary journal. And he has two books co-edited with me and others in Adjuris, Christina Popatashi and Hubert Landier. We publish in Adjuris, who is distributed in Calgary, besides Paris and Bucharest. So Leonardo is used to publish in Canada, and he will be our guest. I myself, I'm Mariana Thieriot Loisel. I have a postdoc in philosophy, science, and technology from the University of Laval, and several publications on human mutation and gray zones. I will develop it further in my presentation. I'm a member of the Thieriot board, the Center International of Research, Transdisciplinary Research from Paris, and the Institute of Management and Psychoanalysis from Paris, DIPM. I'm also an II associated researcher in Tokyo, the National Institute of Informatics for Tokyo. So let's begin. I see several problems I addressed to Engineer Leonardo in between the communication in between machines and human beings. The communication mediated by machines, is it a key factor or an obstacle to mutual understanding and human evolution? To the extent that machines can facilitate concealment, disinformation, fake news, transmitting errors, misinterpretation, and even it can go towards an regression, because the machine does what we don't know to do anymore. Human relations are increasingly codified, mechanized, and procedural within organizations. Arbitrary hierarchy, fragmentation of information, predetermined and standardized objectives and deadlines, which do not take in account the uniqueness of each employee, their needs, or their rhythms. Automated management of people as resources and processes to be implemented, that is to say, as mean, treat them as human capital and not as ends, as noticed Immanuel Kant. Isn't it this extreme codification of relationship, binary and feedback logic? Engineer Leonardo will get back to these concepts, the binary logic and the feedback logic. Those reductive logics are not dangerous in the long term, as it prevents personal initiative on the ground, which would allow crises to be anticipated or accidents to be avoided through dialogue, through open and shared mutual dialogue. So how to implement human training for engineers, managers, and technicians that enable them to reflect and make decisions in crisis situations in order to avoid unintentional accidents caused by human error due to energy issues as fatigue, burnout, etc. I will go deeper in that last item in the conclusion. Human consciousness is nourished by dialogue on the meaning and value of human life. Its conditions of possibility being a democratic context that allows the debate of ideas and their evolution in a safe manner. By prioritizing computers over people, are we not harming human consciousness and democratic cooperation? How can we ethically organize a compatible relationship between humans and machines? So let's listen to arguments of engineer Leonardo.
Thanks, Mariana. I'll start with my new reading on the 1996 Delors report for UNESCO, when he established 4 types of learning. First one, learning to know. Second, learn to do. 3, learn to live together. And 4, learn to be. In our perception, those 4 types of learning can be translated respectively to rational intelligence, empirical intelligence, emotional intelligence, and intuitive intelligence. We can see that in this schema when I translate learning to know rationally to rational intelligence, learning to do empirically to empirical intelligence. Those 2 form the hard skill complementarity, hard skills type of complementarity. And second group, learning to live with ourselves and others rather than learn to live together, as Delors points out. I prefer learn to live simply because it involves emotional intelligence, learn to live with ourselves and others at the same time. And then we have learning to be related to meaningfulness, to significance, something that makes sense. This is intuitive intelligence. So that's my perception on the Delors report. And also I have a 5th element that they don't point out at UNESCO, that is the one that integrates all of them in a transdisciplinary way, that is learning to learn. That would be the 5th element. So my reading on the Delors report has 2 new things. Instead of learning to live together, learning to live because of emotional intelligence. And a 5th element, a TD, or transdisciplinary element of learning to learn. In this connection of 4 intelligence, we find also the dialogue with the 4 epistemic ways. How? We can see transdisciplinarity as the dialogue between the rising culture, a new culture, and the constructing new technoscience, always evolving. How can we see that? Culture is the 3 epistemic ways of philosophy, tradition, and art, and technoscience, the epistemic way itself, that means the dialogue between technology and science. Also in this connection to intelligence, we can see cultures as the soft skills, as we have already seen in the previous schema, and soft skills are the conjunction of intuitive intelligence in an abstract way and emotional intelligence in a subjective way. On the other hand, technoscience can be seen as hard skills, and hard skills are the conjunction of rational intelligence in objective way and empirical intelligence in concrete way. And to complete, we can see transdisciplinarity, TD, as the 4 epistemic ways of tradition, philosophy, art, and technoscience, or the conjunction between culture and technoscience. Culture, the First, three epistemic ways, and technical science, the last one. In this context of the four elements, we have a quaternary complementarity framework of my theory for problem solving. We see again the soft skills and hard skills, and here we translate soft skills as human abilities and hard skills as technical abilities, both of them in a complementarity way, dialoguing for problem solving. Soft skills as intuitive and emotional intelligence, hard skills empirical and rational intelligence. Also, soft skills can be seen as the synthetic method of problem solving. That means in connection to analytical psychology, to the paradigm of synchronicity, meaning prevails instead of causality. That's the main stream in Oriental philosophy, the integration way. On the other hand, the analytical method that implies causality, cause and effect, basically prevailing on meaning. This is basically our Western philosophy, the way of seeing things through a fragmentation, a separated way. So in this problem-solving context, the synthetic method or the soft skills or the ideas, they emerge, and then the answers for these insights can be separated and analyzed in an analytical method, then emerge questions, and then an interaction, dialogue, and complementarity in a cycle until the answer, the final answer or the solution, the best solution for the problem is solved. Also, we can see a separation inside the analytical method. We can see it as inductive and deductive at the same time. We can see the examples of the Romans that in history were the developers of civil engineering and law, but when they needed the deductive or the rational way, they sometimes asked that for the Greeks that were very good in mathematics and philosophy. At that time, science did not exist yet. So we have this example of interaction, deductive and empirical, that of the Romans, and deductive, the ancient Greeks in math and philosophy, and Romans in law and in engineering, that they were very strong at that time. So finally, in the four elements for problem solving in this quaternary structure, we, in our theory, point out the troubleshooting requirements for a good solution that involve meaningfulness in intuitive intelligence. This means a solution must make sense, has to be meaningful. Second, emotional intelligence. A solution needs to be reasonable. Reasonable is different from rationality. Something can be rational but not reasonable. Maybe in the sense of it's not acceptable, even in ethical terms, or it has no common sense involved. It's not reasonable at all. So that's the difference between rationality and reasonableness. Rationality involves rational intelligence in this case, and emotional intelligence involves reasonableness in a solution. The solution needs to be reasonable and rational at the same time. And last, the empirical intelligence that involves viability, concrete viability for a solution. And then we go to the problem-solving attributes or characteristics that involve the intuitive aspect, dialectics. Everybody in the process needs to be hear about, give opinions. Nobody must be excluded, otherwise the solution won't be the best, in my opinion. The second, the sustainability. And sustainability is not only ESG, environmental, social, and governance, as we see a lot nowadays. Sustainability is not only about physical, environmental, biological sustainability or social sustainability, but especially, in my opinion, psychological sustainability in the environments, in the organizations, in personal and collective levels. Psychological environment is everything, in my opinion. And the other things need to go together. And now about the empirical intelligence, the effectiveness. Effectiveness is much more than efficacy and efficiency. Efficiency involves economical aspect and bureaucratic conformity aspects. Efficacy is about the numeric result established by the company, for example, or the organization in terms of goals. But effectiveness is the broader aspect of the results because it involves the governance, the inside aspect of the organization, the results of organization as a whole, and the outside aspect of the results for civil society, for example. So effectiveness involves everything in terms of results. And last but not least, the simplicity. Simplicity can be seen in history through various genius. For example, Leonardo da Vinci said simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Isaac Newton said that nature is fond of simplicity. And last, Albert Einstein, who said that everything should be made as simple as possible, but no simpler. This means we need to be simple, but not simplist. The solution needs to be as simple as possible, but we must respect the complexity of the problem to adequate the solution to as much simple as possible. And now we see another aspect of this dialogue for problem solving between ideas and types of logic now. We can see that as the ideas that emerge for a solution through mythology, symbols, imagination, and dreams. For example, in history, we have seen the chemist from Germany, Kekulé, who dreamed about a snake biting its own tail. And then he found the solution for the benzene formula, the hexagonal closed formula, right? This was through an image, he found a rational solution. And then through these ideas, we need to apply the best solution, or the best type of logic possible in terms of complexity for problem solving. How can we do that? We take a look first at the variables of the problem. If the variables behave simply as like a machine or a clock, we can use the binary logic, the simplest one of true or false, right and wrong, 0, 1, yes or no. This involves a simple linear cause and effect. In the second level of complexity would be the systemic, that involves, by analogy, the living systems that in a feedback process self-regulate, for example, the homeostasis of our body temperature. This means cause and effects are in a feedback process, one feedbacking the other. That would be the second level. And the most complex one is the human phenomena that involve the included third logic, when non-binary logic is not possible anymore, but the dialectical process. And then we can see in this schema the levels of complexity. So we apply the best one for each situation, okay? And in this connection, we see the Arrábida TD Charte for 1994, talking about the existence of different levels of reality governed by different types of logic. They did not say anything about the types of logic, but they have recognized at that time that there are different types of logic. And in my theory, I see 3 of them, right? And in concrete terms, since we are talking about management and leadership in this presentation, this is a new reading from this Article 12. Binary logic, we can use it in decision-making process of accepting and rejecting a project, yes or no, linearly. Feedback logic in management, we use it in a cyclical and interactive way, allowing continual adjustments based on feedback. And this is very clear in the PDCA cycle. For those who don't understand management, plan, do, check, act. This means you plan, you do, you check what you have done, and then you act to improve and plan again and do it again. That's a cycle in a feedback logic way. And last included third logic based on opposition or a new integrated solution to emerge through dialectics, a dialectical process, as I have already said. Also, about this Article 2, we have the levels of reality, and we can see it through the analytical psychology by the analogy made by Jung for the headlight. Like the headlight in the field, our consciousness is like a headlight that illuminates the part you can see, and the other parts that our headlight cannot illuminate are in the shadow. So that this is a conscious-unconscious complementarity in an analytical psychology perspective. The shadow is our consciousness, is what our consciousness does not perceive. The consciously unknown, this means what you don't know consciously, and they unconsciously reject or repress the past. This is an emotional part that you don't sometimes understand very well. Sometimes we repress or reject something, and we do it unconsciously. We don't know it on purpose, but this is part of our shadow. There are two types of shadow, then the conscious and the unconscious. When you can see also that by the MBTI system, or Myers-Briggs type indication, that classifies 16 psychological types. And these types depends on the dominant functions that would be like the headlight, and the weaker functions would be like the shadow, the part of our headlights that the headlights of each one do not illuminate. So dominant functions illuminate the objects, and weaker functions remain in the shadow, as per the blind man and the elephant, an Indian traditional allegory. We'll show this allegory in this illustration. The allegory is about blind men that were supposed to touch an elephant and describe what they saw. And then you can see the first one touched the ivory tusks and said, oh, it's a spear. The second one touched the ear of the elephant. They said, it's a fan. Third one touched the trunk of the elephant and said, oh, it's a snake. The other one, the leg, and said, it's a tree. Looks like a trunk of a tree. The other, the lateral skin of the elephant, and he said, it's a wall. And the last one, the tail, and he said, it's a rope. So this is an allegory to show how different types of people can see reality, different levels of reality through different perspectives. There is no one unique truth. There are many perspectives of reality then. And then we go to, in this connection, to the mediator, manager, and leader for problem solving. We have developed this model also by quaternary complementarities that in the center shows how to mediate and to be a leader. And this comes from 4 types of disciplines, especially in public administration in general, and also in management. It can be used in management in general. First, technoscience that involve engineering, business, administration, economics, and natural sciences, including medicine, biology, etc. In this there is a risk called dogmatic scientism, because people are more scientific, right? The second one would be the bureaucracy of law and legislation. And there is another type of risk involved self-centered positivism of everything that's written in law and legislation. Those two together, technoscience and bureaucracy, forms technobureaucracy with the risk of naivety and credulity. Why? Because people tend to be focused on science and in bureaucracy. And they are not very keen on human subtleties. Then we have the other connection between technoscience, and the third discipline would be the humanities, involves psychology and human resource. Those together come to the management, the technoscience with humanities. And even in management, there is a risk of excessive discretion, of deciding everything alone without paying attention to other things like legislation and civil society, for example. So the fourth one would be politics, the art of articulation, not only between politics, but also through politicians and the civil society that legitimize them as representatives. In every level, we see that, even in small organizations. And the humanities with politics forms the communication, advertising, journalists with the risk of manipulation, because here we have the risk of manipulating the object information in a humanity subtle way, right? So here is listed those disciplines with the same risk in red. And we have another thing here is that the classification of leadership here in humanities and management as technical leadership, and here with politicians and civil societies as intuitive intelligence, also not forgetting about partisan ideology. I forgot to mention the risk of ideological dogmatism. That's not very different from the risk of dogmatic scientists, but the dogmatism is the same, but in opposite ways. The ideology and science can become dogmatic. So this is what I would like to say about mediation and leadership, the techno-bureaucratic and manager, intuitive politician and civil society, two types of leadership, and the two together becomes the transdisciplinary leadership. Now about the Article 13 of the TD Charter. Talks about transdisciplinary ethics. We have a wider view of this transdisciplinary ethics, considering organizational practice, especially corporate feedback, that involves group feedback of understanding constructive and productive feedback that evidence those in working group connection, the compliance in ethical and regulatory terms. And this would be a new view of the Article 13. And last, as for the mediating manager, we see 4 types of dimensions for the manager, mediator, and leader. The generalist involving articulation of specialists, the peacemaker, like a fire extinguisher, walking in another shoes, seeing always himself in another shoes, in the other's perspective, find the always honorable way out for everybody. Besides that, ghostbusters, that means that people look for ghosts, as Robert Langier says in his theory, or as I say, under the carpet problems that are hidden by the psychological level of the organization. Developing this expertise includes putting right people in the right positions for organizational synergy and a healthy psychological environment. And last, welcoming how in bureaucratic listening, empirical intelligence, rational hearing, rational intelligence, acceptance, emotional intelligence, and integration, intuitive intelligence. And then Mariana can finish the presentation. Mariana? Mariana?
Thank you very much, Leonardo. So it's time for us to end our presentation. We will deepen in a transdisciplinarity symposium, probably, all those different types of logic that were presented today. I thank you very much for your attention, and we hope to see you soon in the next video. Thank you.